uprising and civil war in Syria. So has British street artist Banksy, who enlisted the help of UK band The Elbow for a video entitled #WithSyria.
An iconic street art image given life. The Girl with a Red Balloon by graffiti artist Banksy has been recreated in the real world by girls in cities across the globe, including London and Moscow, as well as in a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan. It's part of the With Syria campaign, which is asking people to join sunset vigils to mark the 3rd anniversary of the Syrian conflict and help make sure it never sees its 4th anniversary.
I want to help those children in Syria, and I want to try and stop the war because they're not having, well, there's lots of kids there who are feeling really ill and many are dying.
The campaign is organised by a coalition of over 100 humanitarian and human rights NGOs from 24 countries.
We are calling for the Syrian authorities to end the sieges, to ensure that humanitarian food and medical supplies are able to enter the country, to cross conflict lines, and that the people of Syria can live with some dignity.
To lend his support, Banksy has made a new version of his piece depicting the girl as a young Syrian refugee. There's a message for the Syrian people in the title of the original: there is always hope.
Let's go now to the campus of Oxford University and say hello to a journalist who lived as a child in Syria's third city, Homs. Rima Marouche, she's covered the conflict in Syria for the Los Angeles Times and National Public Radio. Thanks for being with us. You're now with Oxford's Reuters Institute. Let me begin, if you will, by reading to you what it said at the end of that video by Banksy. With compassion, with support, there is always hope. That was the message. What do you think of that message?
One of the messages was also, will we let the people of Syria lose another year to bloodshed and suffering? And I think, sadly, most of Syrians think that there will not be really help, or we are 3 years into this conflict and we still don't have cross-border help coming into the country, not really cross-border line humanitarian aid is crossing in. So I must say that Syrians are not very hopeful.
Where you are on the campus of Oxford University, how present, how relevant does Syria seem to those sharing your vantage point today?
Last week, a Syrian artist exhibited Syrian graffiti from many of the slogans that have accompanied the uprising. But, it's kind of difficult to compare the two worlds because I know I'm living in a stable and safe environment, so there is no way to compare the two. But I'm noticing the difference between Syrians inside the country and outside. I think many Syrians inside the country, when I speak to even people who are with the opposition, sometimes I hear that if we knew the cost of this, of the death toll and the destruction of the infrastructure, people are not sure if it was worth it.
And of course, you have friends who've over the past 3 years been, I guess, scattered to the four winds.
Yes, I remember the excitement in the beginning of the uprising, of people discovering one another. We've built many friendships for the past 3 years, very strong relationship with people who were involved in the movement. Many right now are scattered in neighboring countries. Some are still inside, and I feel like these are the real heroes.
You were mentioning those who have gone to neighboring countries. Generally, the ones you've spoken to recently, how's their lot? How are they faring up?
I think, many Syrians are divided. Some are clinging and holding to the idea of this revolution, that it was good, that it wasn't a mistake, it wasn't wrong. Others are saying, maybe it was not the time. Some are still government supporters and are kind of, we told you so, and we are right. So there is not one stance. And I think people are trying to cope as they can, I'm noticing a lot of self-censorship on Facebook. Even people who are outside of the country, they don't post photos from happy gatherings or good moments because they feel like it's not fair for people who are inside.
You mentioned at the top the enthusiasm you witnessed back in March of 2011. Tell us about the last time you went to Syria in February 2013.
Yeah, I was in Kafrembil. Kafrembil is a town that has become known as the conscience of the Syrian revolution. They are known for holding slogans and banners that are critical of all sides with a great sense of humor. It was the first actually demonstration on a Friday when I was there, where for the first time the black flags of Jabhat al-Nusra were raised in the demonstration. So for more secular activists, it was difficult to see a new player on the ground appearing.
Before we go, let me ask you, Rima Marouche, we saw at the beginning of the week, for the first time in a long while, President Assad out in public. He was with displaced people near Damascus in the town of Adra. It's, I guess, priming the pump a little bit for the debate we're going to have later on here on France 24 in the next hour. But is there the sense that Assad has the upper hand for good?
I think yes. There is also, you can see it through legislation that has been recently signed. There are new restrictions on possible candidates who would be running for the June 2014 elections. Not that anyone believed that these elections were actually change anything, but the new restrictions are that the candidates have to be continuously living in Syria, not less than 10 years. So it kind of excludes large segments of Syrian opposition leadership. Another legislation stipulates that if your Syrian passport expired or if you fled the country without proper documentation, you need a permission from the Syrian consulate or embassy to return to the country. Many Syrian lawyers are saying that this is not legal, that it is actually in conflict with the Syrian revolution, with the Syrian constitution, with Article 38 that says that you cannot ban a Syrian from returning to the country when he has a proof of his citizenship. So yeah, there are new legislation being imposed that kind of sends a clear signal that there is no will to kind of negotiate or compromise.
All right, so in view of that, full speed ahead, how should the West respond?
Could you repeat the question?
How should the West respond if it's full speed ahead for Assad?
Luckily, I'm not a policymaker or a politician. But I think there is just hands-off policy has not been really working. People are saying, well, we don't want to make things worse, but how worse can they be? Every minute, 3 Syrians are becoming refugees, according to the UN. Every 2 minutes, 8 children are forced to flee their home. While we are talking, 48 children will be forced to either become internally displaced or refugees. Every 10 minutes, 1 person dies. So I'm not sure, but this needs to stop.
All right, Rima Marouche, many thanks for being with us here on France 24. Stay with us. More to come at the bottom of the hour. We'll have the latest news on Syria and, of course, with the situation in Crimea, with 11th hour diplomacy failing. And again, in the next hour, we'll be talking about that 3rd anniversary of the Syria uprising in the France 24 debate.